So this is a video response to Emily Longworth. I've seen a lot of her videos being shared on Facebook by a lot of my conservative friends, and I watched one of her recent videos. It was kind of like an open letter to people who don't like Donald Trump's temporary ban of Muslims in this country from those 6 or 7 different countries that he's temporarily banning them from. I actually watched her video. I thought she made one or two good points, but I think that a lot of the things that she said was either widely inaccurate or she didn't have enough facts to back up what she was saying. So without any further ado, this is a respectful response to Emily Longworth.
It is time to talk immigration. Ladies and gentlemen of the United States of America and anyone listening to this around the world, I stand firmly behind my president's decision to temporarily block any and all individuals seeking entry into the United States of America from the 7 countries that breed, feed, and house Islamic extremists who wish to inflict harm on the citizens of my country.
So yeah, if there are people from those countries, if those countries have and house people that want to cause harm to our people or national threats to our people, then yeah, I completely agree. They should not be here. We should not be housing them in our own country if they are threats.
Let me explain why. This temporary ban on those seeking refuge within the walls of this nation has not been implemented because of choice and faith. This ban has been set into motion because those individuals fleeing from Iraq, Iran, Syria, Libya, Yemen, and Somalia are predominantly contributed and connected solely by way of region to known terrorist organizations such as ISIS, the Islamic State, who is responsible for coordinating the attacks that have left over 1,200 people dead, strictly outside Iran and Syria.
Okay, so if we're going to go and ban people from those nations because they live in a close proximity to these Muslim terrorist organizations like ISIS, well, I mean, I proved in my last video that, again, anybody from any religion, any race, any ethnicity has the penchant for causing large-scale mass terrorist attacks. We've seen that. White people, black people, Middle Eastern people, Asian people, Jews, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, they all cause these mass terrorist attacks and have done so in the past. So why isn't the narrative ban everybody, and why is it just ban those specific people from those 6 or 7 countries? Again, it doesn't make sense to me if it's just merely a national security threat, because anybody coming into this country can harm national security, and we might not find out about that until after they create an attack. Heck, the people who are causing these attacks on this country, the Orlando shooter, just crazy guy who happened to be a Muslim who got a gun. How did he get a gun? He got the gun legally. So we are not doing enough on our personal domestic level to stop these terrorist attacks from happening.
Attacks that were targeted for Westerners, by the way. These 7 countries are governed by the Islamic faith, but that does not mean that Muslims in and of themselves are barred entry into our borders. Rather, individuals who are citizens of the countries I just listed. This is a temporary ban where President Trump is simply saying, hey, everyone just chill where you're at until we can figure out a better strategy to protect the safety and security of our own citizens. That is not too much to ask for those seeking our help, our freedoms, our jobs, our space, and our money.
But my personal reaction to that is, well, I mean, why did Donald Trump wait this long to figure out a strategy on how to protect our national security? I mean, he's been saying that he was going to temporarily ban Muslims for at least 6 or 7 months now. You would think that since that was one of his biggest talking points, that he would have taken the time through those 6 or 7 months, maybe even 8 months, to figure out a strategy of his own.
Now, with that being said, I understand where your hearts are when opposing this executive order, and I understand that you more than likely based your decision upon scriptures in the Christian Bible.
Most people who are conservatives, have a Christian background, believe in the Bible, base all of their opinions off of the Bible. this is being used by atheists and agnostics and other to combat your views because you view abortion illegal because it's against the Bible. You homosexuality is illegal because it's against the Bible. Gay marriage. So they are merely using this as a way to combat what you are saying.
I understand that you are remembering what this country was founded on, and I understand that you are consistently reciting that this country was not originally ours. So who are we to dictate who can come and go? But the fact remains is that it is now.
Um, that's one point in this video that I kind of actually agree with you on. It's fun to joke that white people took this country from the Native Americans and they were the original refugees as the Puritans. But due to imperialism, I mean, the white people found that they were stronger, so they conquered. That's how things work. It's a good thing to look back on and joke at, but it really isn't a legitimate point. It's kind of a technical point.
Too many of you are thinking with your emotions rather than your brains.
Well, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think it's easy to say and fair to say that people on both sides of the spectrum had an emotional roller coaster. Whether you were supporting Hillary, whether you were supporting Donald Trump, whether you were supporting Bernie Sanders, we are emotional people. We're not Vulcans.
You're compassionate people, and I love that about you. But your compassion towards those suffering around the world should be coupled with compassion towards those who are suffering here at home. We have more than 50,000 homeless veterans on the streets that they fought to protect.
I think that it's very important that we go ahead and we keep these military veterans in our hearts. I think that it's important to remember these people and to remember their importance because they risked their lives for our freedom or for what is perceived to be our freedom abroad, mostly. But the thing that we need to remember is that, and this is going to be a huge deflection, like you said, you support Donald Trump, you support the things that he is doing, this Muslim ban. But what I have to say right here is that Donald Trump doesn't care about our veterans. Back before he wasn't president, he wanted the veterans kicked off of Fifth Avenue because they were selling old things. They were just small shopkeepers around New York City. If you've ever been to New York City, there's a lot of those people selling T-shirts, selling trinkets, this and that on the sidewalk. And Donald Trump wanted them removed because he thought it was ugly, because he thought that it was bad for business. He petitioned to have them moved. Not to mention, when Donald Trump was running for president, he decided to have a fundraiser for military veterans, which he pocketed for his own campaign. So, if you're claiming that Donald Trump is going to really care about our veterans, he doesn't care. It doesn't matter to him.
We have 1.5 million people going in and out of shelters on a daily basis. We have 565,000 people living on our streets and in cars, a quarter of which are less than the age of 18. At least 7.5 million Americans are unemployed as of this month. We do not have the monetary resources due to our government paying $481 billion towards welfare in 2017 alone to provide incoming refugees. We do not have the proper economy as of this moment to provide jobs to not only our citizens, but to those fleeing to our country. And that's if they choose to get a job instead of mooching off what we don't even have. And to be quite honest, we just don't have our shit together enough to monitor and control incoming refugees to make sure they're not going to blow this country up.
This only brings me towards my point that we should just ban everybody. If we don't have the means to support these people, if we don't have the means to support our veterans and the means to support, our homeless people, and we have to just assume that these refugees and these immigrants are going to get jobs and help out our economy, then we got to ban everyone, Meanwhile, we got our president building a wall. That's like $18 billion. 54% of our country's money goes straight to the military. So again, do we really care about our veterans? Do we really care about our homeless people? Because I would venture to say that we don't.
Now, in reference to the prioritization of Christian refugees over Muslim refugees, let me remind you that those individuals in these 7 countries who make themselves known as Christians are systematically harassed, arrested, tortured, and or summarily executed versus individuals who make themselves known as people of the Islamic faith who have natural defense mechanisms due to the similarity of religious ideologies.
So yes, while Christians are the majority of people who are being persecuted in these countries, understand that there are two different sects of Islam. There's Shiites and there's Sunnis. Now these two groups have been fighting each other for centuries, and the majority in the countries that are being banned are Shiite Muslims. I believe ISIS is part of the Shiite sect of Islam. Now, Shiites believe that Ali is the one true next guy in line from the Prophet Muhammad, and Sunnis believe that Abu Bakr is the next in line. So you can see that since they've been warring for years, that the Sunnis are getting the short end of the stick in those countries.
According to the Huffington Post, Trump's ban did not include any of the Muslim majority countries where President Trump holds business interests, such as Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Turkey and the UAE.
That, in my belief, is why a lot of people are the most upset, and it's glaringly obvious for why. Thank you for pointing it out.
Let me remind you again that all these countries, with the exception of Saudi Arabia, are not sources of significant terrorist activity, hence why their citizens are not currently banned.
So no, that's just widely inaccurate. Turkish terrorists have been found out to have committed multiple terrorist attacks in the last year or so, not to mention them shooting down a Russian plane. A Russian ambassador to Turkey was shot dead by a police officer in an art gallery. So, no, while Turkish people might not be completely known for these acts, they have been known to commit terrorist acts in the near past. So no, that's just widely inaccurate or untrue, or you're just ignorant to those truths.
And to place that label on Saudi Arabia is only based on circumstantial evidence.
It's actually not circumstantial evidence, Emily. September 11th is known to have been perpetrated by at least 12 Saudi Arabian terrorists out of 16 total who perpetrated the attacks. And not to mention, the Saudi Arabian government has never apologized for this. There have been wrongful death suits out to Saudi Arabia. We house Saudi Arabian princes who do horrible, just completely horrible things to women. They have their own sex slaves. They keep them in their own mansions. And police officers don't do anything about it because these people are immune to the consequences.
Every president has done this since Eisenhower and before that in World War II.
Blame Saudi Arabia? I don't follow.
This is one step of many for any nation in the defense of their own sovereignty facing imminent threat, which just so happens to now be radical Islamic terrorism.
While radical Islamic terrorism is a real threat on this country, I would also venture to say that willful ignorance is also a threat to this country. There have also been incidents in which people in this country who happen to be Muslims, who happen to be refugees, who just happen to be living their lives here normally, have also been put under attack by people from this country who think that they're awful people. That doesn't send a great message to the Muslims living in these ISIS-controlled areas, because they fall under the belief that us Americans are just as bad as they are, maybe if not worse.
And let me just say one more thing. If you're questioning the legality of President Trump's authorization to implement such an order, you need only look to federal law, which clearly stipulates the right of the President of the United States of America to impose restrictions on immigration as he or she fits for the good of the nation and for any length of time he or she deems the protection necessary.
Emily, I don't question the legality. I just question his mental state at times. If, again, like you say, and like he says, these people are a national security threat, these refugees, then why not just ban everyone? Again, it's plain and simple.
Again, I understand where your hearts are, but the safety and security of the people of this nation is and should always remain the number one priority. To protest at the airports and march in the streets is your right within established legal processes, just as it is legal right to immigrate to our nation with the legal process allowed, just like every other country in the world. So protest all you want, but you will thank this country one day when you're not in a position that you could be in, should we allow anyone and everyone to continue crossing our borders illegally and without control.
While yes, there was a lot of protesting at airports, I think a big reason why a lot of people were protesting at these airports was the fact that um, these people were coming into the country. They were being held at the airport without food and a place to sleep. So there's wide reasons why someone could protest, but I think that's definitely a legitimate reason to protest at an airport.
It is better to prepare in advance than to fall under attack by people fleeing from the very heart of those chanting death to America.
Emily, I think that a major thing you're not considering is the fact that these people are leaving those countries because they're just horrible places to live, that they're treated poorly. Um, if they're coming into a country to seek refuge, more than likely, I would say, like, in a 99% chance that these people are not coming to this country to kill us. As a matter of fact, you can look at the number of refugees from those countries that have caused large scale attacks on this country. You'll find that the number is zero.
We come first. America comes first. Anyone who disagrees with this is forcing me to question your intentions for this nation.